Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. I'm so excited because joining me today from all the way on the other side of the world in Australia is Daniel Nesci. Hi Daniel.
Hey Demi, how you going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. I'm so happy you're joining me because today we're going to be talking all about perfection versus completion with our songwriting. And I think this is very, very important, and I'm very excited to get into this. But before we do that, can you share with the listeners a little bit about yourself and your songwriting journey so far?
Yeah. So my name is Daniel Nesci. I'm originally from Sydney, and I still am in Sydney. I'm 19 years old. I have been fortunate enough to collaborate with some incredible songwriters, Grammy nominated, ARIA winners, throughout numerous band projects that I've been a part of throughout school. I'm also a digital communications manager for an independent label here in Sydney, overseeing releases, working hand in hand with artists to finalize their resources for release, delivering songs to distribution. Recently, I've stepped away from a lot of projects to focus on solo music, and that's where my 2022 is looking to be.
That's awesome. What do you think your favorite experience with your songwriting has been so far? Because you've clearly done a lot.
I think there's two and different stages. One, the initial part of first starting a track, that fresh new sound. It's like, ooh, what have I just landed on, kind of thing. That initial kind of first hour of writing a track, and then seeing it come to fruition with bringing in other people. I mean, one of my favorite collaborators to work with is a orchestrator named Randy Slaw from Utah. Every time he sends me something back, it's always just magical. So those are my two favorite kind of components.
That's awesome. I completely agree. I love, the beginning of the writing process and then starting to see your vision for a song come to life. I love that as well. And so I'm very excited to chat with you today all about perfection versus completion. And to get into this, can you please read a quote by Edith Schaeffer?
Yep, no problem. Here we go. People throw away what they could have by insisting on perfection, which they cannot have, and looking for it where they will never find it.
I love this. What does this quote mean to you?
I think, while reading it this morning for the first time, I think the main thing that points out to me, and I can kind of relate back to different experiences with different songs, throwing away a track, especially when it's probably maybe 95% of the way there and you just can't work out the last little bit. And instead of kind of going with it, you put it aside, you bench it, or you grow to hate it. I think just harnessing and cherishing whatever good 95% you've got, and not really destroying it over a little bit extra.
I love that. I think a lot of times as creatives, we are so focused on what we're doing and we have such high expectations for ourselves. And especially with songwriting, oftentimes it's really personal. So we have this expectation that we want it to be a certain way. And I've definitely been in the boat too, where like a song is 95% there and there's just something about it that I keep reworking it over and over and over again. And most of the times, those little things that bother us so much are things that listeners won't even notice or listeners might even love. Like there might be a line that we hate and we're like, we're not releasing this song because we don't like this line. And then if we just, gain the courage and, deal with it and release the song, that can be the line everybody loves. And so I think a lot of times we kind of have to set our own expectations for ourselves aside and say, okay, this song is great. Perfection isn't achievable in the first place, so I'm not going to even reach for that. I'm just going to leave the song how it is because I'm proud of the space it's in now, and then release it and let the listeners embrace that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also recently, especially now writing music outside of a band context, because I think being in a band for the last few years, I mean, there was one band member I was in. He was always about having like a perfect track, which I think is really good to have that person. And although I've always tried to push to have the best possible quality you can be. I think there's a big issue with comparing yourself as a new artist or a early stage artist to some of your favorite artists because I've read in different articles, different kind of Grammy speeches and stuff like that that you need an army to create a hit record or a whole group of people, and sometimes people just don't have that at their disposal, and they'll go back and they'll listen to their first releases or their early releases and they'll absolutely hate it because there's mistakes or it's not what they imagined. And I think there just needs to be less comparison in the industry for early stage artists and more focus on and growth and development and just seeing your early releases as more of a benchmark rather than a disappointment.
Oh, wow. 100%. I'm so happy you brought up comparison because I think that's a great point to dig deeper into here because I think, especially with songwriting, that's the basis of all the songs. Like, once you get into production and instrumentation, that's taking it to the next level. But the bones of the song is the lyric, the melody, the chords. And so I think when we're starting out, we're all starting somewhere. Like, my favorite songwriter is Julia Michaels, and where I'm at right now isn't where Julia Michaels is at because she's been writing for so long and has had amazing hits and worked with incredible people. And so I think we have to let go of our own standards and not compare ourselves to hit songwriters and also not compare ourselves to our peers because I think the independent artist community is a place where we should support each other and lift each other up. And once you start to get into the whole comparison game and that level, it can be super damaging looking at other artists who are might seem like they're at your same level, but maybe they had more experience or maybe they had a co writer or something. So I think we can't compare ourselves to anybody, just focus on ourselves and our own journey because we're the only ones walking our own journey. And so we can't compare that to anybody else's.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also think that, so using me as an example, I've been playing guitar for 12 years now. Guitar, bass are my primary instruments. And over the last year, I've kind of expanded that into drums and having proper vocal lessons now for the first time. And I think despite playing instruments for such a long time, songwriting is such a different skill altogether. And I only started writing music maybe when I was 15. So, not even 5 years ago. And I think in order to you, you're never going to achieve perfection, but I think in order to improve there's got to be a lot of tracks that never hear the light of day, and you have to be okay with spending the time on something that isn't going to come out because for every 20 songs, you work in private, you're just playing around with new concepts, new ideas, just new techniques, new skills. It's all going to channel into that one song that is going to come out, and that one song that is going to do well. It should project you to opportunities that you might not think about at the time. But I think separating songwriting as a separate skill and your instrument playing, your vocal ability, your musicianship as another, I think is another step necessary to kind of be content with the perfect song, since they're air quotes, without it being the perfect song.
Oh, 100%. I think that's great. I think that's a really great point because I think if we focus on improving our musicianship, learning piano, guitar, taking voice lessons, that's all contributing to writing better songs. Like, the better of a musician you are, the better songs you're going to write because of the music side of things. But at the end of the day, like you said, I think I always say it's so important to get through the bad songs because if you don't get through those, you're never going to get to the good ones. And so I think a big point of this is like, being okay with that and not really letting the songs that don't come out as well be discouraging because everybody goes through that no matter where they are on their songwriting journey. And so, like, what advice would you give to any songwriters who are struggling to get through those bad songs because they feel discouraged and might think they won't write a better song?
Don't feel bad about starting over. I remember when I was working on the first EP that I ever did when I was when I was 15, my writing partner at the time was 22. And one day he just came up to me and said, "We need to start over." And I think it was the best decision. Um, well, it was the best kind of prompt anyone ever gave me. Um, and now I don't feel bad about starting over. And I think, especially for early songwriters, as time goes on, you will start to understand what is a good track versus a bad track, what's better. And obviously, for me, for everyone, doesn't matter if you're a Grammy winner or a kid in the bedroom, you're gonna continuously improve every time you write a track. There's no, the moment you stop learning in this process is the moment that it is over. I think just being okay to start over, being okay to have something just sit on the hard drive because you're just stuck with it, because it might come to you 3 years later. You might have a progression that you can add to this years later, and it might put everything together. But just being okay to pace yourself just a touch.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And I also think too, like, sometimes the songs aren't terrible and they just need time to sit there. I know, like, there's a song that I'm currently working on for my upcoming EP that it's been giving me such headaches since like November. And like that doesn't usually happen with me. Like I like to do rewrites. I think rewriting is one of the most important parts of the songwriting process, but this song has just been like torturing me. And it's not a bad song. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever written, but the chorus is just like a thorn in my side. And like, I'm not throwing that song away because right now it's not perfect and there's nothing that can be perfect because it's art and nothing's perfect. But I know that that song can still improve. And instead of me throwing that song away because it's not where I want it, I am continuously rewriting and rewriting it. And I finally am at a place where I'm like, I think I got it. And if I would have given up on that 2 months ago when it started to giving me headaches, I wouldn't have gotten it to where it needed to be. And so I think sometimes you just need to set songs aside and revisit them and just like keep pushing it and keep pushing at it because sooner or later it might click. And so I don't think you should step away from a song right away. Give it time.
Yeah, I agree. I also that's a good lead in for me to say that this is why I also like working on numerous tracks at once. At the moment, I'm working on 5 tracks that are probably all single worthy at the moment. They're 5 out of the last 40 I've probably written since November. Um, but I think having multiple tracks going at the same time, as well as a very tight knit group of people that you can send them to and get genuine, honest feedback from, and that should be both musicians and non musicians. So I have 2 friends who are non musicians, couldn't tell me a single thing about production, even if they tried. Um, and all I know about them is that they have varying music tastes, and they always give me honest stuff because they know nothing about music in that sense of building it, but they're music listeners. And at the end of the day, that's the people that you're going to be delivering the music to. So why not get the feedback on early? But then also having a couple people inside your circle who are a part of that same world. I'm working on a track at the moment uh, that I'm working on with a producer in Utah named Jeff Slaw. He's a DJ. He's awesome. And yeah, I was sending him demos of the track long before we actually started the production, getting his takes on things, getting his input, and it it just makes those tiny little differences because sometimes you don't see everything in the picture. I mean, you're making the painting. Sometimes you don't see the chip on the edge of it. Just having a good network, having multiple songs at once because you can jump between them.
100%. Yeah, this conversation is flowing absolutely perfectly because I was just going to lead into the getting feedback thing. But I completely agree with having multiple songs going at the same time. I think that's something I didn't do when I started. And I think that was because I was still learning the craft and I was like so centered on finishing this one song. And then once I thought it was done, I just set it aside, considered it done, like completely finished, and moved on to the next one. But now, like, I'm literally crafting 3 songs right now at the same time that are going to be on the EP, and I'm not adding any more songs right now currently that other than co-writes like of my own. I'm just focusing on these three, balancing between them, because I think, when you start working on another song, that kind of clears your headspace from the one you were working on, so when you revisit it, it's kind of like with fresh eyes. So I think that's really important. And also, like, the feedback thing, I completely agree. Like, I send my songs to my songwriter friends, and one of my best friends, Jess, is like a huge fan of music, but she doesn't know anything about songwriting. And so she's one of the first people I send it to. I'm like, hey, Jess, like, listen to this. What do you think? And I think the coolest thing is like the songwriter friends will focus on craft things, and then the music listener friends are just focusing on the song as a listener, and they'll point out things that we as songwriters don't even focus on because we're so deep into like the lyric and the melody and the chords and all that. And so I think it's really important to have both of those opinions before making decisions to make changes and all that. So I think like one of the biggest decisions we have to make as songwriters is determining when our songs are complete. They'll never be perfect, but we have to get to a point where we're satisfied with them. So what are some of the things that you look for in your songs before making that decision?
Well, like you, when I started off doing songwriting in the first place, I would do one song, work through it, feel like it was done, and then move to the next one. Whereas now, as I work through simultaneous tracks over a period of a couple weeks, couple months, whatever it is, I also think it depends if you stop at the songwriting stage and you kind of hand off someone at a production stage. I think there's different levels of when your song is ready. For me at the moment, I am doing the songwriting and I am doing part of the production and then working with whoever to get at that final step. I think one of the things I've started to look for, and getting feedback from close friends and other musicians is something that I've only really kind of done now since I've started doing solo music more than ever because I'm on my own in that sense. But I think what I'm looking for now, and this is because a lot of people have kind of guided me through different stages of my songwriting as I've grown up, the fluidity of a track, all the little tiny minutia of the track. Like, is this riff right here? Is this vocal chop here? It's like, what would I want to hear when the production is finally done? Is it already here? Does it need something else? I think if I can listen to a whole track start to top in its demo stage to its production stage and be captivated throughout the whole time, even though I already know what's going to happen. I know I'm pretty close. And then I think that's when feedback comes in, and if the people around you are equally as captivated, that's when you know it's kind of ready to move on to that next stage.
I love that. I love that so much. I think one of the most important things as songwriters is to focus on the song itself and not really rely on production to carry a lot of the weight. Because if you do a song acoustic and it doesn't sound good, and then you have the song produced with all this crazy production and it sounds good, that's less of the song and more the production. And so I like you, I think it's really important to have a very strict demo of a song that sounds amazing before taking it to the next level with all the production and all of that. And something else that I kind of do as well is like I will just read the lyrics out loud rhythmically, like not with the melody, just speaking the lyrics and doing that to make sure the lyrics are exactly how I want. And then I will isolate the melody and do the same thing. I'll just like sing the melody on a syllable like do or or something, not singing the lyrics just to really focus on the melody. And oftentimes like I'll record myself doing this and listen back, and then as I'm listening, if there's something in the lyric that jumps out, make a tweak. If there's something in the melody that sounds weird, change it. And so I think isolating the parts of the song is a great way to really focus in on them and see them for what they are, and then make the determination, is this done? And then if so, like putting it all back together and then seeing that completed song.
For me, my songwriting approach, I don't go for a stripped back version of the track. But I don't go for a fully produced version of the track
Okay.
either, for a couple reasons. One, I think having someone else work with me on the production is usually better because if I'm working on a track for a few weeks, my ears are starting to get used to what's sonically going on, which means it's going to get harder for me to be fresh with what's going on, which is why I like getting other people on some stuff. But I think, like for me, I will do a lot of the writing no matter what instrument on a MIDI keyboard. Even if it's guitar, sometimes I'll still do it on a MIDI keyboard despite playing guitar. And I think being able to piece the whole song together whilst developing the melody almost at the same time. So it's not one line is all the instrumentation, one line is the melody, so that they're crafted together at the same time. I mean, everyone approaches different. It really doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there in a way that you're happy with it. My approach is just writing kind of both at the same time. Sometimes I'll start with the chorus, sometimes I'll start with the verse. Sometimes I'll start with something that I think is the chorus and it'll end up the pre-chorus because later on I'll think of something that's more got a bit more oomph to it. It doesn't really matter how you get there as long as you do. I just think having a very clear picture of what you want after you started the initial phase of a song is super important, and being able to put all those little pieces together.
No, I love that. And I think that's so cool because there isn't one way to write a song or one way of taking a song to the completion stage. And I think that's really important to note here because I think some people can get wrapped into the right way to do something and thinking if they do it that way, then they're not doing it the right way, the perfect way, but there is no right way. And so I think a lot of it is like having to do with doing it over and over again, kind of like we were talking before. Like you have to grow and you have to continue to improve your craft. And the more you do that, the more you will start to realize what works for you and what doesn't. And then once you start to know your own process, then you're able to be more aware of what's going on and notice like when something's working, when something isn't. And I think, the best feeling ever is like getting to that point where you sing the song full way through and just feel so great about it, and then like do some kind of recording, whether it be stripped down or more produced or whatever, and then listening back to it that first time and thinking, okay, I got it, that's it. So that's a great feeling. So what is it like for you when you're finally at that point where you're ready to record the song fully, when you think it's completed?
I don't like recording. My favorite part is my favorite part is the songwriting because I think the writing's the hardest part.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done like progressive instrumental releases, which the guitar recording for that is an absolute nightmare. It's not enjoyable. It's all that is about being as close to really perfect as a player gets in that sense. And then I've been involved in pop releases where we've gone in the studio and a vocalist that wasn't me, would go there and we're all just listening to the takes, and now I'm writing and kind of doing everything, different people and recording stuff while I'm at home. And I mean, I can record all the instrumentation at home, and I'll step away outside of my home to do vocal takes somewhere else. I'm not a huge fan of the recording process. I I love the writing, I love the production, and then kind of tweaking in the mixing mastering stage, which I also like to hand off a fair amount of the time. Um, I just think recording be shouldn't be something new, if that makes sense. I feel like if you've really written the song fleshed out, it probably shouldn't be something new. It should just be something that needs to be done. So all the mistakes and fluff that was in the initial writing phase is kind of cut out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, it's so funny because I love the writing. Obviously, like songwriting is my passion, but I think like the most fun part is going to the studio to record because like for me, like I play piano really well. That's my main instrument. But I've been doing a lot more pop country music, which is obviously guitar driven, and I can play guitar, but I'm not great at it. We'll keep talking for a bit. I'm not great at it, and so I think for me, it's like I don't like listening to my songs in their rough forms because I have this vision in my head that I know can sound way better when my guitarist Luke will play for me. And so, like, I honestly like look forward to studio days like nothing else. Like I book 10-hour sessions and we go and do like all the recording, and I work on the production with my producer. So I love the recording process. So it's so funny to hear you say you don't like it so much, but I think that just shows like two different songwriters who both love songwriting have different, moments that they like and don't like, and I think that's super awesome to see how we're different and the same at the same time.
Yeah, I also think because at the moment, the way I'm writing for my material at the moment, when the only thing I'm not trying to record properly is my vocals, but everything else in terms of instrumentation, I have the capacity to record properly here at home. So I am, in a sense, like with synths, guitars, that kind of thing. I am. The only thing that I'm leaving a little bit is probably the drums, getting a little bit better drum samples as stages go forth. But I like having as much of the instrumentation in its near to final form pre-mix while I'm writing, I think helps me kind of formulate what's next in the track. I'm looking forward to recording vocals properly. I need a little bit more prep for all of that, but that at the same time brings its own challenges in itself, and I love challenges, so I'm looking forward to doing that because I wanna actually record them, but the recording process in itself is not something I really care for.
That's so funny that you look forward to recording the vocals because that's the part where I actually get most anxious because I'm always like, oh no, how's my voice gonna sound today? How's it gonna sound at this time? Or like all that. So the recording vocals thing stresses me out. But no, I completely get you. So this has been like super awesome. I love this chat. But before we wrap things up, what are some final thoughts you'd like to share about completion versus perfection when it comes to songwriting?
I definitely I think, yeah, a really, really big thing. Just looking at your previous releases as a benchmark, not something to be disappointed about. And also, if you write a series of songs over the period of a couple months, like for example, I wrote 4 tracks over November, December, January that I'm working through now, nearly ready for production. And then last week I wrote a fifth track really late at night and it all just came together. And in my opinion, it's probably better than the previous four. You don't be I wouldn't be annoyed as a songwriter that something like that just happened. I, just think of it as a very fortunate little gift because obviously in those 3 months I've been working on my craft, different instruments. So a burst like that is bound to happen eventually. So when a little sudden burst of songwriting comes, don't be annoyed that it might be better than what you're also working on. Just take it. And what else? Another songwriting. Yeah, diversifying yourself in different instruments just so you can understand it. Not necessarily so that you will be the best at an instrument or a full blown session player, but just so you can understand what is within the realms of possibility for that specific instrument.
This has been so fun. Thank you so much for sharing all of that awesome advice there at the end. Before we go, can you share with the listeners where they can find you on social and listen to your music?
Yep. So at the moment, no solo music out. You can see me on Instagram. I'm relatively hidden at the moment, but throughout the year, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Daniel Nesci or Nesci, haven't decided yet. Or my tag DJ Nesci. Joshua is my middle name. I'm not a DJ. Um,
That's so perfect.
but yeah, throughout the year, I'll be doing more stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this awesome chat. It's been fabulous. Listeners, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Right on Track with Daniel Nesci. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right on
right on
track.
track.